there are a lot of things that businesses are having to adjust to in terms of how do I get found? How do I get new customers? And in the past, it's been a lot of adjusting to algorithm changes, adjusting to what is Google doing as far as search engine optimization? What are the algorithms in social media doing for how do you get discovered there? And now what we're seeing in recent years is not just an adjustment to algorithms, but a complete paradigm change, I think, with AI and how we get found. And that's really causing disruption. So with us today is going to be Tim Woda to speak about that. And you're going to learn all about how to make adjustments so that you can stay profitable in your business. So stay tuned.
This is the Digital Trailblazer Podcast, your online business university. Cutting through the hype and noise to bring you the social media marketing strategies that are working right now, straight from the entrepreneurs who are putting them to work. Real strategies, no fluff, real results.
All right, welcome to the podcast. Tim, thank you so much for being with us. Why don't you just give our audience a quick introduction about who you are and what you do?
Sure. Thanks a lot for having me on, Todd. Appreciate it. I'm the owner and CEO of a digital marketing agency based in Reno, Nevada. The name of the company is White Peak. We really think of ourselves as a growth partner for our clients. So what we do is we kind of get down into the weeds on how they actually run their businesses so that we can help them better perform as a business, marketing being a huge part of it, obviously, in our area of specialization. But yeah, what makes us different really is that we get down into the weeds and don't just start jumping into a campaign just because someone's willing to pay us.
The reason we brought you on is because when I spoke with you before, you had a lot of interesting things to say about how to get found and discovered and how to be profitable in your business. And the focus that a lot of people are putting is not necessarily in the right place. But I think what a lot of people are seeing or what they're noticing is that AI has commoditized a lot of the information that the results that people would normally look to somebody else to get or visit a website to get. Now they're just asking AI and they're getting the answer there. And everybody's scrambling to figure out how to recover this lost traffic, right?
It's fascinating because for years, we heard it was all about the content. And now, of course, ChatGPT and Google and the like have consumed all of our content and have made it their own. And when I try to think about like what this is like, I'm a child of the 70s, right? So I remember being in school and going into the library and asking a librarian like, hey, where can I find some books about, I don't know, Abraham Lincoln, right? I have to do a paper in school. And they would point me to a section in the library where I would then find all these books and I would have to mine through the books to find the information I want. And today it's like walking into the library, asking the librarian the question, and she says, oh, I just know every answer to everything there is to know about Abraham Lincoln. Why don't you just tell me what you need and I'll give you the answer? And those books suddenly don't have the same impact on a potential reader. And so that's the way people's websites are now with all the content we've created. And what's tricky is businesses are freaking out. They're clearly freaking out because we've been told, whether you're e-commerce or whether you're a small business or anywhere in between, like you need to build top of the funnel awareness and traffic. And that's going to come from this content. And all of a sudden it's in the blink of an eye, it's gone. And so people are chasing their tail, trying to figure out, well, what am I going to do? I'm going to, if you chop off the top of my funnel, how am I going to get people to the middle of the funnel? Right? So it's a big deal. And I do think that people are reacting in a way that represents a degree of panic. And panic never leads to good business decisions.
Right. Well, and is it just the search traffic or is it also the ad traffic on Google? Because I think I've heard that it's also the ad traffic that's being affected, isn't it?
When we first started seeing AI overviews and ChatGPT and Gemini and Claude and all these things, it was really only, hey, how do I fix my toilet, right? Like it was stuff like that. And now we're starting to see ads. These companies need to monetize. And remember, Google's bread and butter is ads, right? So they're not going to do anything that doesn't involve ads eventually. So they are integrating ads more and more into their responses and playing with different UIs. But the other side of this is that as they start to provide better and better answers, the same reality is taking place. As you point out, I used to say, how do I fix a toilet? Now I say, where do I buy a toilet? And so if I'm a homeowner and I need a new toilet, I just go ask ChatGPT or Google and it'll tell me, hey, go to Home Depot. So yeah, it is affecting ads as well now. It's creeping there. And I think this is the tip of the iceberg. I think answer engines is really how we're going to interact with the web going forward. And so people have reason to be concerned if they haven't adjusted.
Well, and I think back to social media platforms like Facebook when they first got started and it was free. And then I remember the company going publicly traded company and everybody was like, this is stupid. It's a free platform. It doesn't make any money. Why would you buy it? And then suddenly they introduced ads. And it's one of the most, I mean, everybody's running Facebook ads now. And I see the same kind of thing happening with ChatGPT and the other AI platforms is that, yeah, for the most part, they're free. And I think I remember reading something about how ChatGPT lost how many millions or billions of dollars and it's not profitable. And investors are like, oh no, not viable, or it was a bad investment. And it's like, well, no. They're doing the same thing Facebook was doing. They're growing their user base and then they're going to figure out how to monetize it later. And I think that's coming, but we're just in this weird adjustment phase right now because everybody's just trying to figure out how to adjust. So right now, I mean, I know things are going to be changing, but right now, what is the best answer? Like, what can we do to make up for this loss in traffic?
First of all, I think it gets talked a lot about, but I don't think it gets talked about with the appropriate amount of concern. Yes, people are panicking. Business owners are panicking, right? They're like, oh no, this is a serious problem. But I think those people who are in the industry, we're so close to the forest, sometimes we can't see past the trees. Like we just think of it, we're used to changes, like you mentioned social media, right? So we're like, oh, it's another change in digital marketing, right? I think for those of us in the industry, we have to take this as serious as the small business owner or the brand owner who's watching the numbers, and they see it as an existential threat to their business. Like, I think we in the space just see it as another change we'll adapt to. And because of that, I think it's caused us to not innovate on our side of the desk. And this is an existential threat. If you're a brand, you are disproportionately, a recognized brand, you're disproportionately going to find yourself in a ChatGPT or an AI overview answer. Okay. So if you are not a brand, which is most businesses, this is a serious problem. Gartner talks about upwards of 50% of traffic disappearing. That's a big deal, right? So you do have to replace the traffic. And I think there's a handful of ways to do that. We think of it as, instead of like search engine optimization, it's, anywhere optimization. Like at this point, businesses need to perfect their social media game. They need to perfect their YouTube. They need to perfect, we're on a podcast, right? Other forms of content. They need to perfect SEO. Of course, they need to perfect ads. They have a lot of things that they have to get better at. Okay. And that's daunting for businesses. Certainly they have to find a way to understand how to get into answers that are being given by the chat GPTs of the world and the answer engines of the world. But I actually think that that's putting the cart before the horse, because I think people are going to have a lot of failure. When you try new stuff, you fail. And when you fail, it's expensive. And if you've already lost half of your traffic and now you're gambling on finding new traffic sources, I think potentially that existential threat, we actually, as a business owner, can now contribute to our own demise and go out of business faster because we're just gambling and we don't know our businesses well enough to know where there's some opportunity or not. And, you and I have talked about this, Todd, offline. We think the single most important thing that businesses need to do right now is they need to understand their business. They need to understand their math, and they need to then optimize for the math, for their customer journey, for their customer base. And then they can start gambling. They need to improve their odds. They need to improve their odds of success. So it's not gambling. They can make some informed decisions.
So you mentioned a few things here. One of them was that if you are a brand, you're much more likely to get picked up by AI responses and things. So what qualifies as a brand? How would you know if you're a brand versus not a brand?
It's a great question. No one's ever asked me that question, but I think that there are some ways that I would go about answering that question, right? It reminds me of Jeff Foxworthy. You might be a redneck if, right? You might be a brand if you are found on Wikipedia. You might be a brand if more than your mother knows the name of your company. You might be a brand if you're already in ChatGPT answers, right? So you have to understand that ChatGPT and the like, they're built on the idea of entities, right? They're built based upon what are known entities. And largely that's in Wikipedia. And most businesses aren't in Wikipedia, right? Now, when you start getting into the localized searches, you're not going to find like the local hardware store in ChatGPT, right? But you might find them in a Google AI overview. If you're already showing up, you're probably a brand, because non-brands didn't end up in the first wave of ChatGPT and AI overview. That's really simple. So if you're not there, you're not a brand.
The other thing you mentioned was that there's a lot of opportunities now that people are maybe ignoring. What would those opportunities be? Because I'm sure people are like, okay, well, what is it? Like, if there's something out there that's going to work where I don't have to panic like I'm panicking right now and gamble with my money, what are those opportunities?
I'm going to split this into two components, right? One of them is understanding your current business, because I think that there are some really good answers to where to get new traffic. But if one starts there, then they're going to lose. The house is going to win. I literally had a conversation just yesterday with a ranch, right? They sell steaks online and jerky, and they've been in business. There's Family Ranch, right? They made the switch to sell their meat on the internet, and they've been doing great over the last few years. And so this past year, they noticed, their traffic was going down. And so I sat down and I talked to the owner of the business side of the ranch, right? Not the cowboys. And I said, look, what is your customer lifetime value? And she said, I don't know. But she was able to go look it up. She could go and look it up in Shopify. She came back and she was like, our lifetime value of a customer is like $2,800. But she didn't know that information. So I said, okay, well, I'm going to treat you like investors have treated me when I brought on VCs for different businesses. They would follow that question up with things like, great, so can you tell me how long an average customer spends between their first purchase and their second purchase? No, I can't tell you that information. Okay, was the first purchase profitable for you? Barely. So no, not really. Oh, so if I give you my money, you're not going to be able to tell me when I'm going to be able to make money off of a new customer. I'd have to look for it, right? Like, this is the conversation, right? It's like, do you know what your average order value is? Yes, it went down by $17 this year. Okay, great. That may or may not be good. It doesn't sound good, but let me ask you a question. Did you introduce new products this year? We did. Okay, are they more profitable? Yes. What's your cost to acquire that customer versus another customer? I don't know. Like, people don't know certain key nuggets, right? Like, I think most businesses are like, Elizabeth in this conversation that I had with her. She knew some stuff, but the devil's in the details, right? So if she's going to go and try a new channel, which we'll talk about in just a second, she doesn't know exactly what metrics are really going to work for her. So she's going to start in this channel. Let's just say it's YouTube, because I would say that a huge channel that a lot of businesses overlook is YouTube, right? It's the second largest search engine. Start making content for YouTube, participating in content on YouTube, running ads on YouTube. Is that profitable? Do you know how to make that work? Do you know if, like, when you acquire a customer from YouTube, do you have the ability to upsell them and cross-sell them more products or a second purchase faster than if you acquire a customer on Reddit, which is another place that business owners should be looking at. They should be looking at Reddit not only from an advertising perspective, which of course Reddit would love if we would all do that, but also from participating as an active member of the community. A lot of businesses have hired social media people over the years. And it's funny because you mentioned like I had flashbacks of like the day when Facebook would give you an audience for free, right? Like, wow, what an amazing time. There was only one caveat, if you remember, that you had to be authentically participating in the community for that to work out. If you just went on to the community and you just started like trying to pimp out everything that you sold, nobody wanted to hear what you had to say, right? Remember that? Well, the same is true on Reddit. You'll be kicked out of subreddits really quickly if you get on there and you're like, hey, let me tell you about my great company, right? But if you have a social media manager who can participate authentically in conversation and be useful, just like the social media days, you can build a brand and build awareness on Reddit. And Reddit gets cited all the time, not only on Google, but in ChatGPT. Brands are, you ask, what is a brand? Well, brand is essentially if someone's talking about you. So if nobody's talking about your brand, then your brand probably needs to find a way to be represented, get some face time with the people, right? It's kind of like a politician, right? Why do they go to Iowa 1,000 times before the election? Because they need people to know their name. Reddit is super authentic content, and you need to build a brand by just being there, right? So I think these types of channels, Reddit, YouTube, and there's others, all that's great. But if you don't know how to properly monetize it, it takes a lot of investment to invest in Reddit. Like even if you're going the organic route, right? Someone's going to have to authentically participate in conversations. That time is expensive. How are you going to figure out if you're making money on it? Right? Same thing with YouTube and YouTube participation and ads and digital PR. These other channels, all of them are really important because here's the beauty of this. In the world of AI, these platforms are places that feed into the ChatGPTs and the Claudes and the Geminis of the world to determine whether you have a brand, to determine whether you're important enough and relevant enough and authoritative enough to be worthy of being cited or mentioned. So it compounds upon itself. But that investment, should your brand be more heavily towards Reddit? Should your brand be more heavily towards YouTube or digital PR? Those questions you have to be able to answer with actual math. And business owners, not only don't they know their numbers, but I would argue, Todd, that what they need to do once they understand their numbers, they should figure out how to improve their numbers. In this ranch that we're talking about, that I mentioned, what we're doing is we're switching them to a different Shopify. We're customizing their shopping cart so that they can do a better job of selling subscriptions and upselling and cross-selling products, right? And figuring out how to monetize the traffic they already have better, so that when they go and they say, hey, let's try to run some Reddit ads, or let's try to run some YouTube ads, or participate in digital PR, they'll be able to weather the storm of failure that's inevitable when you try new stuff. Because otherwise they'll just rule them out. They'll say, oh, this channel's not profitable. Well, it's not profitable because your monetization rate is crap, right? If Todd has the same business and he's figured out his monetization rate, he's going to be able to stick in and figure out how to crack the code on YouTube ads or digital PR longer than me, because my monetization is crap and Todd's is good. That's kind of me on my soapbox about, people need to know how to run their businesses is where they need to start.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up, because I think about, the journey that me and my wife went on. And when we started selling online courses, like our first course, we sold for $300. And it sold really well. We made $1 million that first year that we sold it. And I still remember looking at our ads and just really being obsessed on not just a day-to-day basis, but an hourly basis on the cost of our traffic. And, are we making money? Are we breaking even? Are we losing money today on these ads or this hour? And it was really stressful. And in the end, it worked out. Like we were very profitable. But if I were to look back, and I don't think that we ever did this, we never really knew for sure. But if I were to look back and say, how much was an average customer worth to us? It was measured probably in the low to mid hundreds of dollars, every customer. Now we're doing a much different business model where we're doing a lot more high ticket rather than low ticket stuff. And lifestyle wise, it's a much easier lifestyle. I'll say that. Because our average customer value has just skyrocketed. It's now in thousands of dollars rather than hundreds of dollars. And we don't really have to obsess over ad cost. I mean, we still look at that. We still want it to be a good ad cost, but we don't have to obsess over it on a day-to-day basis. I look at it maybe once a week as far as how are our ads doing versus every hour when I was selling online courses. The stress level is way lower, our profitability is way up, and it's just, lifestyle-wise, much easier for us. Also, you mentioned some things about YouTube being the second largest search engine, and it occurred to me that yes, that's right. But also, YouTube isn't using AI, or I don't think it's probably affected by AI nearly as much as Google is being affected by AI right now.
Yeah, I mean, of course, both of us could be wrong by the time this thing airs because everybody's changing their user interfaces constantly. But yeah, I think that's true. And remember how so many people use YouTube. It's like their WikiHow, right? Like, how do I cook a steak? Just to stick with my rancher client, how do I cook a steak on an iron skillet, right? Okay, they're going to go and they're going to watch a quick video, right? Like they're not getting an AI answer. They're getting straight up answers, right? Well, is that video content being created by, Elizabeth and her husband's ranch? It should be, right? Like who should know better how to cook a steak on an iron skillet than a rancher selling steak, right? So you're right. I think there's this unique opportunity, and I don't know how long it'll last, but there's this opportunity to get your organic content surfaced and again, build a brand, build a following so that when someone asks the same question of ChatGPT, you're being cited and potentially even your video that's on YouTube is cited, right? Because, the little citations are not. Truth is, no one's clicking on the citations yet. Stats show that's not happening. But by the time we all figure out how to do it, I'm sure they'll figure out how to show us a UI that we'll actually love.
The other thing I was thinking about was, well, number one, they need to find a way to monetize it other than subscriptions, because I don't think subscriptions are covering the cost right now. But also, AI relies on the content that other people create. And if people are not being profitable with their content, they're going to stop creating it. If people aren't going to get the traffic that they get from creating that content, they're just going to stop creating it, which is going to stop feeding the engine. So something has to happen here where people are going to be rewarded for that content they create.
Yeah, I think there's truth to that. And I think just kind of the law of human nature of how people work, right? Like suggests that. I do think that, as you point out, these platforms are going to have to figure something out, and it cannot just be cannibalize the content creators. Maybe they do come up, that is their plan, but I had this client who was in the travel business, is in the travel business. They're a great business. They're at Shark Tank. We've grown this business a ton. Like it's been an awesome journey with them. And they're in the travel space. And when COVID hit, they were punched right in the face. The world just did not want to travel, right? So everyone else in their space said, oh my gosh, this is terrible. Like we need to cut our spending. Fortunately for these guys, they went out and they raised additional capital right at a time when people were like, why should I invest in a travel business? And their answer was because COVID will end. The COVID will end. And this time of uncertainty with AI consuming content and not getting monetized back, that time will end. I don't know exactly how, but it will. And what this business did was they actually spent more on advertising during that time. More compared to their competitors. They largely kept their spend the same. And then COVID did end. And today they dominate their space. I mean, there's not even a close second place. But when COVID showed up, they were battling it out with like 2 or 3 other brands as to like who was going to be the business that was going to thrive. In fact, they aired on Shark Tank in March of the year that COVID came out. Like it was the worst possible time. So they didn't even get like a, Shark Tank bump that they would hope, because people were like, yeah, that's great, but I'm certainly not going to travel. It was terrible timing. And so they came out of COVID ahead of the game because they didn't stop doing what they thought made sense. And so I would say to a content creator who's like, man, I'm not going to benefit from this, I would say stay the course. There's some way, shape, or form you're going to benefit from having your brand build this content. I think we need to tweak how we build the content, right? Like we used to just be able to do like informational content and it was a little bit like Field of Dreams, build it and they will come. I don't think it works that way with content today. I think it needs to be, again, I'll use the example of the ranch. They're making videos on how to cook a steak on an iron skillet. If I were them, what I would be doing is I would be showcasing multiple products. I would say, here's how you cook this steak. And I would have an overlay that's like, here's why this steak is great. Who's it good for? And I would do it with another steak. And I would be like, there's a link down to each of these steaks in the description, right? Yes, be helpful. But I think we need to be more than helpful now. We need to take it when we create content to say, if this has been helpful, here's how you can take action based upon what I've given you. I think you can still make content. You got to be smart about it. And if you stop making content now, I think you miss an opportunity to build a brand for these guys to cite.
Right. Yeah. I think one of the things that people don't understand is that consistency and longevity count a lot when it comes to social media and algorithms and content. One person in particular came on the podcast who had a YouTube channel, and she had been pumping out weekly, if not, multiple times a week, content for years on her YouTube channel. And it was growing at like a snail's pace, like just not really at all. And then she finally had one video that popped and went viral. And what she noticed was that one video, when people found that one, they started finding her other content. And that other content got a lot more traffic as well. And so that longevity and that consistency of having all that existing content for people to crawl and see, it made a big difference at that point once it finally hit. But if she had not had all that previous content, it probably wouldn't have helped her as much. She would have had to start pumping out more content going forward, and she wouldn't have had the benefit that the existing content gave her.
I think you're hitting on something that's so important, Todd, because I think when we have times of change in digital marketing, we do have to react. Like we do have to assess the situation, adjust to the landscape. That's all important. But there has to be a degree of discipline in your business, whether it be, hey, I'm producing content and I'm going to be religious about it. I'm going to be very disciplined and I'm going to create it every day or every week or whatever your cadence is. Or whether it's, I'm going to be disciplined about understanding my business, right? My daughter, when she buys a new car, she understands the car by saying, hey, it has nice cup holders, right? But when dad gets there, he's like, hey, what sort of fuel economy does it have? Is it automatic? Is it stick? Like we ask some questions, right? Like, so if business owners need to be asking these questions of their business consistently, needs to be discipline. Bobby Knight, the crazy basketball coach, one time said that his definition of success in athletics is the same as it is in life, and it is discipline. And he defined it as do what needs to be done, when it needs to be done, as well as you can do it, and do it that way all the time. And so even in this time of uncertainty, like around content creating, for example, like, I don't know what's happening with my content. Keep doing it. Keep doing the right thing. It'll work itself out. Things have a way of doing that.
Now, you mentioned Reddit kind of in passing, and it piqued my interest because as soon as you said that, I was like, that's right. Whenever I do a Google search, Reddit results always come up. A lot of people may not be familiar with Reddit, and really I'm not either. I know that it's some sort of an online forum, but that's all I really know. What is Reddit? How can you use that to help build your business?
Yeah, so shameless plug. If you want to understand how to do Reddit really well, there's you can go to whitepeak.io. We have a really great blog post on our site that just actually went up. That's all about Reddit and how to do Reddit organic marketing, not paid ads. But think of it as the town square, right? It's the town square. It's kind of what social media used to be way back in the day, right? There are these things called subreddits. They're threads that someone can start on a particular topic, and people who are interested in that topic, either as, let's say, a consumer of information or as a contributor of information, can participate in these town square breakout discussions. I mentioned politics. It's kind of like an Iowa caucus, right? Where it's like people are all intermingling and interacting, and they're having an authentic conversation. And there's rules within these subreddits, like no spam, you can't do this, you can't do that. And so when you're going to participate, you should take the time to look at it. They've got these cute little like terms. They have something called karma, right? So karma is like your reputation. Have you been participating actively as a good citizen and building up your karma, right? Like, and as you can imagine, if you have a high karma score that demonstrates that you're an active member of the community who's participating in stuff and asking questions, if your karma is good, people want to hear what you have to say. If your karma is low or crap, no one cares what you have to say. So it's genuinely, as you point out, a forum. But I think the way to think about it is it's like a networking event, but online. You can't be sitting there just look. If you go into, anyone who's ever been to a networking event has seen the dude at the networking event who all he wants to do is come up and introduce himself and immediately give you a pitch. You can't run from that guy fast enough. You're like, I think I need to refill my drink, or the bathroom's calling. You're out, man, right? Well, in Reddit, they'll just kick you out. They'll just be like, boom, you're out. Right? So you can't be that guy. Like, you have to genuinely say, I would like to be a digital citizen and participate and add value where I have it. What's great about this is that you'll have people talk about things and they're wrong. They're just flat out wrong. But you know what? That represents the real world, right? Like, if you're at a networking event and someone's like, oh, let me tell you about what I think of YouTube TV. Right. And they give you their opinion. They might be like, I think Sling is better and here's why. And then the next person's like, well, I tried it and during football season and I had a problem with getting ESPN. So, and it's really happening. Right. And so what happens is you, Todd, or I, who go in there, we're like, you know what? I run a search on Google and I run a search of like how to cook a steak on an iron skillet. Right. And a Reddit thread comes up in the search and I click on it. I trust it because it's authentic people talking about it, not some brand trying to pimp steaks, right? So someone might say, you know what? Here's a really good YouTube video that I saw that explained how to cook a steak really well. But it wasn't you who did it, right? It was someone else. Or if you were the ranch, you could explain it and you could say, look, I own a ranch, so I know a few things about meat. And here's how we recommend that you cook a steak on a skillet. That might be okay. But if that was your answer every time, right? Like, sometimes you might need to participate in how they should change the college football playoffs. And just be a human.
Interesting. So as far as the subreddits that you want to be active in, if you're a local business, are there local subreddits that you can be active in? Or, for example, like us, Digital Trailblazer, our audience or our ideal clients are people who are building coaching businesses and agencies and even online courses. Would I want to find some subreddit that's specific to those things, or where?
I think so. Yeah. There's hundreds of thousands of subreddits. So yeah, you do need to do some searching and some mining. There are technologies that are available. I'm not going to sit here and pimp out a bunch of technologies, right? But there are a bunch of technologies that are available that can help you search more efficiently to find subreddits that might be useful to you. Obviously there are a small number of agencies that actually do some work within Reddit. Those companies can help you as well. But yeah, there are niches. Right. And in fact, those are usually the ones you want to find, right? Like, rather than like the town square, you want to find the one that's about coaching, where people are asking legitimate questions about it that you as a digital citizen in that subreddit could be useful to people, for sure. But don't be surprised if a question about the college football playoff comes up on your niche subreddit, right? Because someone's going to comment and go, did you see the playoffs? Blah, blah, blah. Participate.
It reminds me a lot of how Facebook groups work, because we have local Facebook groups for our local area and our town. And I know with our Facebook group, if all we do, even in our own Facebook group that we own, if we make a post and all that we've been doing is just posting about the webinar that we're promoting or whatever else that we're promoting, or book a call with us. If we just do stuff like that, nobody's going to see it. Like, the reach on those posts is going to be 0 or in a handful of dozens. But if we are active in other ways and we're getting more engagement, even on our own personal profiles, for example, like my wife is the one that usually does the posting. So she's on her own personal profile and she gets a lot of interaction or a lot of engagement on a post, and it kind of pops and it spikes. she will immediately go to our Facebook group and make a little bit of a promotional post, because that translates over. If people are interacting with your personal profile, things that you post in groups are going to do better as well and get more reach. And I kind of see that as being the same thing on Reddit. If you're participating in other ways and you're getting engagement on even unrelated things, it seems like you're probably going to get more interaction on the promotional posts.
Well, you will, because this karma, right? Just to kind of focus on karma for a minute, is a quantitative signal that tells people essentially should they pay attention to you or not. And you build karma by participation and being a good steward of information and being a good digital citizen, right? I mean, that's why they named it karma. Like, you're going to get back what you put in. To your point, if you're just there to promote your business, and I understand that everybody who's listening to this podcast is like, okay, I need to go there so I can promote my business. Okay, that's fine. But just know that if that's all you do, you won't go very far, right? To your point, you need to be able to see what's going on, other conversations and so forth.
Tim, this has been an amazing conversation. A lot of interesting nuggets that you dropped here. That first thing I'm going to do is look at that blog post that you mentioned, because I've wondered about Reddit for a long time. I just have not had the time to really dig into it and see if it's something that is worth our time to put some marketing effort into. But if people want to get a hold of you or find you online and learn more about you and what you do, how can they find you?
Yeah, we're online at whitepeak.io, and you'll land on our homepage, and right from our homepage, you can schedule a free consultation. One of the things that we do that's, I think, a little different is we don't really do a lot of selling for our business. What we do is we essentially meet with people, understand what they're going through, and kind of collaborate on how they could make that better. And then if they want to hire us to help them, they're welcome to do so, right? And that strategy has worked really well for us over the years. So someone shouldn't be afraid to schedule a free consultation with us, because we'll genuinely try to be helpful, and it won't be a sales pitch. So they can meet us at whitepeak.io.
Awesome. All right. And if people want to get a hold of you on social media, connect with you, maybe send you a message, can they do that, or where can they find you?
Yeah, you can just go on to LinkedIn, which is probably the best place these days for us, for our business, and just search for White Peak Marketing, and you'll find us.
Awesome. Well, we will have the links for all of that in the show notes. Tim, thank you so much for being with us today. We really enjoyed having you and discussing all things marketing.
Yeah, sounds great. Thanks for having me, Todd. It's been a joy.
You've been listening to the Digital Trailblazer podcast. The strategies and earnings mentioned by our guests represent their individual experiences and results. Nothing shared on this show should be considered a guarantee of earnings or success. The views, opinions, and claims expressed by our guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official views of the Digital Trailblazer podcast or its hosts. This podcast is for educational and informational purposes only and does not constitute professional, financial, legal, or business advice. Please do your own research and consult with qualified professionals before making any business decisions.